Welcome everybody. Today is March 7th, 2023. This is the Hannah City Village Council meeting. Everybody, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Debbie, Brandon, can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. No guests. Everybody should have a copy of our February 21st. Yeah, February 21st meeting minutes. Yeah, I said it right. Please take a look over those, see if there's any adjustments that need to be made.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second. Motion by Sidak, second by Pearson. Any further discussion? All those. Sorry, I was reading something. All those. I can't even think tonight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Treasury report, Ms. Cassandra.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
What's 8 PACE Analytical Services?
8 is the designation in
What's PACE?
PACE is the testing company that we use to test the sewer samples
That I,
and water samples.
because I asked Cassandra that before.
The which samples?
The pace.
Water and sewer samples
Okay.
for bacteria and stuff.
I'll make a motion for the treasurer's report and pay all the outstanding bills.
Second.
Motion by Chiravalli, second by Sidak. Any further discussion?
Have you guys implemented the new email module from Locus yet?
She goes to the training on the 24th.
Actually, they moved it up to Thursday.
Okay.
And you're going to that?
It's going to be over the phone with Tracy.
Oh.
It's for utility billing.
Okay. Roll call that. Weaver,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Chiravalli,
Yes.
Sidak.
Yes.
Motion carried. Illinois funds participation update.
I have sent in all the participation paperwork to be added to the Illinois funds. I have yet to hear back from, I called them twice to get an update. She says she sent the paperwork to the other department. I haven't heard back from them yet. So as soon as I do, we'll be moving the money.
Okay.
Ron Gully just joined.
Okay. Ron, do you have anything to bring before the board? Or are you just here for spectation?
I'm here for spectator, Jim.
Thank you, Ron. Engineers report, Mr. Lott.
Good evening. I don't have a whole lot. Just we did go ahead and submit the FNF. I'm learning the acronym here, the financing nomination form for the water project water tower project as we talked about last time. So that has been submitted to the EPA to get your name in the hat for a funding year that you're not likely to take advantage of, but it's a good idea. So that's been done. And Brian, what we're doing is internally, I have an internal meeting tomorrow to go through the tasks and try to identify what we can do and then what would be best for you guys to do with respect to the financials mostly. So I would, after that, maybe reach out to you and set up a meeting, maybe next week, just to devise a plan of attack to begin to collect all the things that we need to collect and submit them in the schedule that we provided last time.
Good enough.
Other than that, there's no other, nothing else to report. I didn't know, Brian, if we wanted to talk a little bit about the MFT stuff today or later on.
Yeah, you can. Go ahead.
Sorry, I've been on the road all day, so I see it on my phone. It doesn't always get an accurate read. But it looked to me like IDOT has approved the MFT program so that we can move forward to get bidding or prices for the program like we did last year. I thought I saw you guys had some dates scheduled there, Brian. I don't know those offhand.
Yeah, we did. Let me look real quick.
So next Thursday. Thursday sound right?
I think it was the 30th.
But I guess the point being that we're moving forward. We've got IDOT's blessing, and like last year, we look forward to getting out soon so that we can get that in-house ready to go as soon as the fiscal year allows us to begin the projects.
Yeah, you guys are going to post it, and then the opening is on the 30th tentatively scheduled for the 30th of March at 10.
There you go. And I apologize for not having that in front of me, guys. I looking at that. So that'd be the only other thing I would have to report.
Did you see? I sent you an email late today. Maybe I didn't see it, but are you familiar with that at all?
A little bit. We've been talking.
I'm sorry. It's the Sorensen funding for the possibility for the water tower. Cassandra and I are going to meet tomorrow and start looking at it. But if you had some familiarity with it, I thought I might.
A little bit. Every district team seems to have a little bit different cover letter. I got one from another district, boy, not many days ago, maybe late last week. It's the old legislative projects, if you will. So it's direct funding. Have your legislator go in and get direct funding for your project. So you need to have all the reasons why what appears to be some very limited federal funds might apply to one of the categories and why your community would, in all of the 17th district, would benefit and should get very limited funds. It's not a light lift. It's a fairly heavy lift, but a lot of the things that you would need, you have. So I'd be happy to participate or maybe back brief you after you guys have met to decide on your end if that's something that you can do. But things like letters of recommendation, you don't need them, but they would be helpful. A board ordinance, don't need it, but it would be helpful. Those sorts of things as any type of grant. I will say they're very competitive though.
Well, we've got 10 days to get it done, I think, if I remember right. So
it would be a heavy lift, but if you said go, we would help you.
No, I understand. I know Cassandra and I look at it tomorrow and see how much of it we can do ourselves. We'll go from there.
Yeah, I think that's the right idea. I don't have a hard no or a hard absolutely. I mean, my only thoughts would be that, it is competitive for very limited funds, and look to see if that's something that you might have the votes to warrant. But I wouldn't say definitely not. I would be curious to see what you thought about the lift. And
now you've answered my question. Thank you. Danny,
that's all I have.
Thank you, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, saw that you joined. Are you just here to observe this evening, sir?
Yep, I'm just observing.
Not at work on your cell phone, right?
That is very correct. Yeah, can't afford that.
Thank you, sir. Takes us down to the attorney's report. Ms. Abby?
Yep. So there should be an ordinance that was in the packet of information. It's pretty short and sweet, but it's basically just an amendment to the Hannah City Code. So the section with with the definition of like quorum, it said majority of trustees, which is not necessarily true and not compliant with Illinois law. So the ordinance change is just to change the code. So with that, your code is compliant with Illinois law.
And this takes a majority vote, so I would need to vote on this also, correct?
If you would like, yes, but it should just be a majority of a quorum.
Okay. So,
Is that worded correctly up there? Because they both say the same thing.
I think
It should say the original one up there, right?
No, it says that the Illinois Municipal Code, the Illinois Code says that this. So we're amending
So
our
we're doing
code
that
to match
that.
it.
Gotcha.
I make a motion, we adopt an ordinance amending section 30.28A of the Code of Hannah City.
Second.
we have a motion by Sidak, second by Pearson. And this is just to get our ordinances in line with how everything's read, so that way there's no confusion.
Abby noticed it when we were going through the COVID information and made the recommendation that we get it just aligned with the way it should be.
Since we're not spending any money. All those in favor of approving ordinance number 23-03-01 and ordinance amending section 30-28A of the Code of Hannah City, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
I
Motion.
would probably roll call this.
Usually we do.
Mine's slipping tonight, so, okay. You can strike that vote.
So we'll vote it.
Use the gavel, strike
Okay, sure. So I got a motion by Sidak, second by Pearson. And then we'll roll call it. Pearson,
Yes.
Chervali,
Yes.
Sidak,
Yes.
Purcell, yes. Weaver,
Yes.
motion carried.
Abby, any specific next steps we need to take with this, or just?
Nope, that should be it. And Denise, you also don't need to send it to the clerk, so.
Okay, this needs to be updated online, right?
Yeah. Abby, did you have anything else for this evening, ma'am?
Nope, that was it.
Thank you very much. Administrator's report, Mr. Baylor.
Okay, in your deck, you've got a fiscal year 23-24 budget draft, just to kind of give you an overview. The process we go through is a couple of years ago, we built kind of a standard template that we use in Excel that basically has our last full year actual, our last full budget year, so that would be 22-23. Our year-to-date, which would be 9 months of actuals, and then we take that and do a projected year-end estimated actual. Mostly we just divide by 9 and multiply by 12. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then we have a budget column for what we want to budget for this year. I sit here, Cassandra sits there, Cassandra pulls up Locust, she's got all the details, and we go line by line and say, based upon all that data, where do we think next year's number should be, roughly? And then she can go in and look at what we spent things on and pull up actual invoices. And it takes a while, but that's how we go through and get to the process. I've sent those spreadsheets to each of the independent owners, and then all of the spreadsheets to the finance and to the mayor to review and look at, so you have the details. And if you don't have the details, I can resend them to you. What I want to do tonight is just get a feel for, generally, are you comfortable with the direction the budget's headed? And then moving forward, what we'll do is talk about some of the assumptions that are in the budget that we're going to have to address more specifically, like what we're going to do on compensation. And then we'll eventually have to vote on the budget, and then we'll have to put the budget into appropriations ordinance form and eventually vote on that. The new year doesn't start until May, so we're a little bit ahead of the game, but I like to get going and have a chance to look at it and digest it. All right, so the first slide you see, it says core funds general. So what you're seeing is income, expense, capital, and variance for the last budget year, 22-23, and what we're suggesting for 23-24. So income budgeted, not actual, but budgeted for last year was $587,500, and we're suggesting $630,600 at this point. And I've got the next slide kind of shows the breakdown of why that is. Our expenses, believe it or not, are actually lower year over year. Capital, I'm suggesting we come down a little bit, and then we have a positive variance. So despite the increase in income with the increase in income and expense, we've got a positive variance of $66,000 right now for core funds general. If you look at the next slide, I explain that. So income is up $43,000. Some of that is tax related. So when we built the original assumptions, it was, I think my first year here was 2020. So we built them based upon kind of COVID years, and so they were low. So we've seen each year that the assumptions on our taxes have gone up, and we've kind of outperformed sales tax, replacement tax, all of those things we've kind of outperformed. So we took the estimated actuals and used those for this year. We also have the Illinois funds, and we made an assumption of the return that we'll get from there based upon what we've seen from other folks, and then we've allocated that across each of the individual areas. I think we used $20,000 total, and then divided it amongst the individual areas. Our expenses are down $10,343. Believe it or not, this is efficiency offsetting the increases we're seeing, inflationary increases we're seeing. Specifically, and Brandon and Abby, plug your ears, but we've changed our processes to the point, and I think Brandon alluded to this sometime back at one of the meetings, but we're spending a significant less amount of money with our engineers and with our attorneys because we're more direct in terms of using them on very specific things rather than broader things. And I get it, before when you didn't have an administrator, you had them doing some of the work that we're doing internally now, so we've saved some money there, pretty good money in those instances. And then capital streets is the same at $60,000, so we left that unchanged. That does not include any MFT dollars. And then buildings and grounds, I dropped from $24,000 down to $12,000. And the only thing on buildings and grounds we have now is if we eventually need to build a new building for the public works, and that's if somebody buys or wants to buy that other property. I think we have like $18,000 in there now. So I took some money out of there and moved it to some other places since we're wanting to do some other work. Core funds unemployment, I'm not going to spend a bunch of detail there because it's pretty simple. Core funds water, yikes. Income went from $298,500 to $467,200. We know a big chunk of that is the 40% increase we're getting from that we changed the rates up 40% because of the Illinois American water increase. Our expenses also went up. Capital I increased as well. And I moved, money around. But if we're going to do the water tower and we're going to head down that path, we're going to need, money for the water tower and for the lines. With all that still, though, our variance is lower than what it was last year. So income $168,700. That's up. It's a 40% increase in rates, and then we also have the Illinois funds distribution there. On the expense side, we've got a 40% increase in the water purchases direct from Illinois American. I've also included, and because we were running at a decent rate on the budget, I included 100% of the water tower application costs that we just approved. So all $25,000 that we just approved with Brandon, I put in there. And then inflation is impacting, especially electric, gas, all of those things are way up. And then I took capital up $18,000. So the tower went from $12K to $30K. And then the general water stayed at $30K, so we'd be putting $60,000 away a year for water capital. Core funds sewer, really not a whole lot of change here. Income is pretty consistent, expenses is up, and I increased the capital. Core funds, again, income was up $600. Illinois funds is the positive. We don't have as many sewer penalties as we've had in the past. Where we've actually had to collect because people didn't pay their sewer bill. I don't know why that is, but it's down pretty significantly, actually. Expenses, inflation is up. Again, electrical, all of those types of things. Maintenance, repair. Capital, I increased 12,000. And eventually what I think we need to talk about is this assumes that we pay off the current IEPA loan. Did you ever get a payoff number?
I left 3 messages.
Okay, they haven't got back to you. I believe the payoff number is around 275, 277, somewhere in that range. And we've got money in the IEPA loan account, and we also have the funds that are currently in the trail account. So the question would be, do we want to combine those two and pay off that loan and get rid of that 1.5% interest? We don't have to answer that now, but that would mean we'd be forfeiting all of the trail funds. And I've got a call into Fred to talk about, is there anything new? Are they going to renew the rail banking for another year or not?
I don't think they were allowed to rail bank it again.
Well, they did for a year.
Well, they did for a year because we had the possible contract of it, and that's why they did it for one more year.
Yeah,
But what is rail banking?
so that's basically, it's a fancy way of saying you can sell that property all in one, even though it's several different parcels, versus selling it individually. So if they can't rail bank it, then it breaks up individually, and then we could buy a section that runs right here through town and do something with it. But if they rail bank it for another year and set it up for only somebody that wants to buy the whole thing, then there's really no point in holding that money. At least that's my view. So let's say they don't rail bank it again, and I don't know whether they will or not. But we could pay off that loan, and then I added another $1,000 a month, and then I put $54,000 a year into trying to build what kind of like we have on roads, trying to build like a sewer lining program where I think we've got I don't know what it is. Let's say $150,000 in the sewer account now, $160,000. We're putting $54,000 more in it a year. Every year, can we do $60,000 worth of section, and then $60,000 more and $60,000 more? Brandon brought this idea to us. I think some other communities are doing it this way. It would take us longer to get it done, but we'd just be chucking it out over time. And so if we were able to do that, if you go out 2 or 3 years, how, do we get all the way there or do we not? But that's kind of what we were thinking. So then next is garbage. Again, just slight changes. Our income is up. And again, that's new rates, and our expenses are up. And that is also new rates. So if you remember right, we took the full price increase with year one, and then each year the expenses are going to go up a little bit more and eat into the full increase to the point where the last year should be roughly break even of that 5-year contract. So not a whole lot there. No need for capital. So then if you look at the next is Lagoon. We're having some discussions about whether or not we should just combine Lagoon and sewer. I know originally the Lagoon was a separate tax entity, and that's why it ended up being separate. But if we can combine it with sewer, then we can have one budget. But we're going to see if that makes sense to do. It gets some income from property taxes. On the expense side, I don't know why we had $9,500 in the budget. I think we spent like $1,500 or something this year, so we had some sort of budget error there. We didn't have any capital in there last year. I increased it to $1,000 a month. Basically, the only thing we have for the lagoon is we have to eventually either clean out or replace the sand in the sand filters, and then we may eventually have to dredge out the ponds.
We just did the sand filters.
Yeah, what, a year and a half ago?
Well, right as Fred left.
So 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So that should be good for a while. And Jim didn't seem to think that dredging would need to be there. We've only got $83,000 in the capital account right now, but we figured if we had the money, we could put some in there. And if we need to move it, we can move it. I mean, it's a place where we could afford to do something else. But there's some other minor expenses that we might need, but I guess I was just thinking I want to be prepared long term if somebody says we need to go dredge that thing. Then core funds total. So if you add it all up, you got income, expense, capital, and we still have almost $50,000 worth of surplus. So to me, the good news is our tax income is up. The water rates are having an impact. Our expenses, for the most part, with the exception of inflationary stuff, are well managed and down some significantly. At this point, I would kind of like to leave a buffer in there, surplus, because we made a lot of assumptions on the water pricing. We couldn't, we did as much data that we could put together, but we're not absolutely sure that we've got all that right. And that makes me a little bit nervous. We should know in April, but we may have already approved a budget by then. But April will be the first time where we see what their increase is plus what our increase is and how that matches out. But
If we need to, we can always go back and do it amended.
Yep. The other thing I would say is the one assumption in here that we're eventually going to need to talk about, and Eric and Jeff and I have been meeting and talking, and we'll eventually put it together, is what do we want to do on compensation? Normally, last couple of years, we've done 3% increases. I made an assumption of a 4% increase in there just to give us a little bit of buffer. But I think they're going to put together a proposal, maybe come to the board and have you guys look at it, and you guys can decide what you want to do from there. But that's an assumption that's in there. If you look at MFT, our income has dropped from 75 to 51. That's basically because the Rebuild Illinois dollars are now gone, so roughly $27,000. That program has ended, so we don't get it. Our expenses are up a little bit, and that's just due to this year's program, the parameters of this year's program. The next 2 years, if I remember right, what we've got penciled out, the cost drops pretty significantly, like from 80,000 down into the 50 or 60 range, I think, to finish up the 5-year plan. We have talked about the money's there, building back in and doing some things with alleys and expanding what that might look like. But nothing really new there. If you look at the TIF, income's up, and that's basically just because every year the incremental property tax goes up, and that's how that's funded. Expenses go up commensurately because we give 80% of the incremental residential tax back to the other taxing bodies. This year we gave back $17,000. There's no capital. So basically all we did is took last year's numbers and kind of projected them out to this year of what it would look like. I think this is the first year we're showing a positive budget. I think the last 2 years we're showing a surplus. The last 2 years were negative, so we are making some progress. On BDD, then we've got income is up, expenses are up, no capital, but we still have a positive variance, which we want to put into a savings account for projects. Expenses, I've got 66,300 that's up. We did not spend last year's projected allocation, but this year's budget, I've got the $75,000 in for the commercial program, $25,000 in for the residential program. I've got $10,000 of the budget for a village project that would most likely be to do the signs. But keep in mind, we've got $100,000 plus in savings. So if we have other village projects that we want to do, we can pull from the savings and operate from our cash reserves. Questions on that? Comments, concerns, anything?
Thank you for putting it together. Yes, it makes it a lot easier to understand everything. Not so many decimals.
Yeah, and like I said, you guys have the details if you want to go through them and look at it and ask any questions. I put notes in the comment side so you know why numbers are where they are, especially if they change. As I said, the next few meetings will be eventually voting on to approve the budget, and then eventually voting on the appropriations ordinance, and we'll be voting on what we want to do on the compensation. I think that's everything that we need to cover. And especially if you think the capital allocations are wrong, we want to do those dollars different. We can. How do you guys feel in general about if they rail bank it for another year, forfeiting the trail money towards other projects, or would you rather not do that?
I'd rather put it towards other projects.
Yeah, I'd certainly not want 6 figures burning a hole in our pocket.
It's $165,000 roughly.
It was pre my time. I don't know a whole lot about the trail.
I mean, the only way that money gets spent is if they don't rail bank it, and if a section, they're willing to sell sections, and if we can afford a section, I guess.
Yeah, and if we want to do something.
That's another fair question.
Well, if they sell it this time, we wouldn't be under the same stipulation for with it being rail banking. and I may be wrong, but if we purchase it parcel by parcel, it would be as if we're purchasing a piece of property. So we could let it set for 2 years as is.
Sure.
Or just make it an improvised trail, take a tractor down it and clean it up, throw some gravel down, make it a hiking, walking path,
If we were to end up doing some sort of like paved thing on there, would all the same rules apply, like the ADA stuff and all of that? Yeah.
Anytime you put down hard surface, it has to be ADA compliant.
You have zero estimation of what any of this would cost. You guys are just putting money away just in case.
Well, we'd had money set back because we had to do so much of a percentage with the
To
loan
get the
that we-
grant.
To get the grant, we had to do so much of a percentage. That's one of the reasons that we didn't do it, is because they were doing it off of the estimated value, not the actual discounted. They were doing it off the discounted rate, so we weren't going to get as much grant money back. Plus, they did not also fulfill some of their obligations as far as getting us information as far as finding out who has right-of-ways and liens, and not liens, but easements, thank you, to those properties for running utilities and stuff, through those. Because I believe those were written into, those go to a person, not to an actual company.
Okay.
And those could be lifetime, and they're not transferable. So.
And you're saying the stipulations would be gone because no more grant?
Yeah, the
That's
reason.
why it would be easier for us now?
Yeah.
Right.
Because you don't have to do the...
Yeah,
We wouldn't have to do 24.7 miles.
Right.
If we wanted to look.
We do 3 miles, but no grant, and you're paying outright. 165 is probably less than half of what that would cost you. I mean, we did some back of the napkin stuff way back, and I think it was like 350,000 if we wanted to get from like Taylor Road to Pekin Lane or something like that. Using the numbers that we
That's just
had.
to buy the property.
So with no grant, we'd be getting a loan anyway.
Yeah. So we'd have to figure out it. And then on top of that, you've got to develop it. So, there'd be those costs.
Sure.
Which again, doesn't have to be immediate, but
It doesn't have to be as immediate versus where we're going to the rail banking. They wanted us to, start work on it, maintain it,
within like 2 years or something like that.
Yeah.
The good news is I don't think there's a ton of problems in the section that we're looking at. I don't think there's a bunch of runoff I think the ground is in pretty good shape. So I don't think there's a bunch of restoration work.
It was mostly on both ends where the issues were.
That's right. No.
See, I've hit that a couple times. It's not bad.
Thank you.
I think that's it on budget.
Okay.
Looks great. I like it.
Finance, Mr. Chairman.
Nothing really, just what Brian said. We've been having conversations about compensation for the employees, and I've just been kind of digging in so I could have the basis. So I know who's making what and where and how much and why. And we'll have some sort of a plan thrown together for you guys to look at. We'll talk about in another meeting. So just kind of be thinking how you feel about the village and what you think our employees might need or deserve, and I believe we get to talk about that in a later meeting. That's it.
Mr. Johnson, we didn't have anything in our planning and zoning.
The only thing I had is trying to get working to get the 2 parcels where the public works buildings are that we own into the Peoria Rural Economic Development Zone program, and it has to go through Peoria County, and then we have to vote on it here at the meetings and so forth. The value of that is if we eventually sell it, then whoever buys it, if they build something on there, all the building materials they buy with no sales tax. So we'd be able to offer them some TIF dollars because it's in the TIF district, and it would.
It's an enterprise zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we get it in there, we have 2 economic development levers we can pull to help incent somebody to develop something there.
Mr. Pearson, sanitary and sewer.
Nothing for sanitary sewer.
Mr. Pearson, water.
The only thing for water is that the new water rates have been implemented. Those take in effect now, but that is it for that. Thank you. Quick question on the trail money. Would it make sense to? I don't know if you got an answer to your question first of all. But, like if that went forward and they broke it up, and let's say it was $300,000, would it make sense for us to keep some sort of like percentage of a down payment for for the loan or something like that? Not necessarily all the money that's in there, but something that would go towards a base pay for the loan.
Again, it depends on what they're asking for each of the parcels.
Well, I think you would have that anyway, already set aside. I mean, just in our bank account, just our cash flow, I think we would have something to down pay if you even needed a down payment.
And in theory, you can move dollars around. We could reallocate allocated dollars. We could
Sure.
if we wanted to do that.
It doesn't necessarily have to stay in this fund to be able to go towards that.
Yeah. To me, the big question is do we want to take, $275,000 out of our savings to pay off the IEPA loan, to get, and it's not a huge interest rate, but it's still 1.5%. And then take whatever we're paying them and start funneling it into water and sewer, especially in anticipation of the application for the money for the water tower, to show that we don't have any loans and we do have the funding available to do the tower. That was the logic.
Yeah. Use that money to pay that off and start accruing.
Yeah, because then we would have zero debt at that point, as far as I know. I don't think we have any other loans that I'm familiar with.
What? I know it's a crazy question. What could arise where not having that money sucks all of a sudden by paying off that loan? I mean,
I suppose if we had major water or sewer issues that we needed to resolve, but still we've got, our cash number's pretty.
Anything catastrophic, we're gonna need a loan.
Basically, something catastrophic is what it would be.
Anything catastrophic, it's gonna be millions. We're not gonna have the cash for that anyway.
I mean, right now in savings, at the end of January, we've got $1.1 million. And our grand total, we've got $2 million. And right now, year over year, our operating cash is up $187,000. And we're building a budget that shows we're going to operate at a surplus next year. I mean, I guess the economy could go crazy. I don't know. I mean,
how many?
I don't think we're
years
cash
left?
strapped. What?
You got how many years? 2 years left or something? I don't know what your guess is.
It was a 13.
20 years.
So.
Is that
33.
33.
Yeah. So got quite a few years left.
10 years.
10 years left.
Yeah.
1.5%.
That's a lot of interest.
Yeah.
I don't know how much. I would guess that would be something to look at. I mean, how much money are you actually saving by paying it off?
This month, I just paid it today. This month, the interest was $1,700. So that's twice a year. So
Twice a year you pay that? Okay.
3,400. So
it goes down a
over
little
10
bit,
years.
but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is pretty significant.
So what you save there, think about
It's more money than
what we have in savings.
yeah.
What'd you say? 3,400 a year times 10?
It goes down though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Your tax, your tax.
You've got
interest
most of your interest
You're
right
paying your
now.
principal off.
Yeah. The way I started looking at it, I don't have one way or the other. We can do whatever we want, but 1.5% is not bad. But interest is also interest. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
If we don't necessarily need that money, pay a sucker off.
I'm in favor of less debt.
The other thing we can
We're gonna
eventually
take on more in a couple months,
especially-
a year.
There's a couple of other pieces of information that'll help us as we get farther into knowing what our water rates are doing.
Oh, just that the new rates took effect. Thanks for paying attention.
We should know,
Still writing on the last thing.
we should know more about the water rates and the impact that's going to have, and then we should know more about the Illinois funds. and what kind of income we're actually going to get. I think we've underestimated it, but I don't know. We could be wrong.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we weren't saving 10 grand by
How much
spending
is
270.
the loan left?
How much left?
How much is left on the loan that we would be paying
I
on?
think our payoff number is roughly around 277, something like that.
10 years.
Now you've talked to them, there's no penalty for early payoff. Right?
Yeah, there's nothing.
Not with
I've
that
asked.
EPA. Sweet.
And right now, maybe we ought to do this regardless, but in the IEPA fund, because we've been putting money away for a while, we've got 112 grand just sitting there.
You take that with the trail,
But
that would
that's
pay it off.
not,
That's what I'm saying. That and the trail, and you paid it off. But my point is, even if you don't do anything with the trail, we could, in theory, take the 112 and pay ahead, right?
Or pay down principal.
Yeah.
Good point.
But then again,
Or is the third
was
option?
that for the new water tower though?
no, this is
Okay.
this is the IEPA for the sewer line and
For
everything.
the tower,
Oh.
we've got currently $223,000 in there, but we're going to start putting away
More.
30 grand a year. And we can do more because on general water, I've got 128,000, but we're putting another 30 grand a year for that. Of course, we knew the water leak thing, and if they found something, then that might make us feel better. I mean, there's a lot of ifs, right? At 30,000 foot, we're not cash strapped. We're cash flow positive. We're building a budget next year that's going to be cash flow positive, most likely. We're putting away this next year's budget. We're putting away. We went from $168,000 to $198,000 of capital savings a year. So if everything did fall apart, we got $200,000. You could stop doing any capital savings, and you got an extra $200,000 plus the surplus on the budget was $50,000, so you'd have $250,000 of available cash flow just right there.
I lost you a few words ago.
No, my point is, so in our budget, we're taking almost $200,000 and putting it in savings, right?
Right.
So if something goes way south, we can pull that $200,000 back in, and we can spend it.
Gotcha.
On top of that, the current income and over expense for the year, we've got $50,000 more of income over expense. So take that $200,000 plus the $50,000, you got $250,000 worth of available cash. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun cash because you'd be stopping doing things that you want to do. But my point is, you have a buffer there to build. You could build almost $250,000 in a year if you just stopped.
Yeah. Everything's pointing in the direction of paying off that
My
loan,
only question was
cutting out the trail.
the what?
No, go ahead. No, I was just saying everything you've said is pointing in the direction of cutting out the trail and paying off that
I
loan.
think the biggest
Yeah,
issue with the
it's
trail
not
is there's an emotional and there's a connection to that for a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a community connection to it.
So for some, that'll be seen as a pretty significant move. But
Well, even if we decide to spend that money, doesn't mean that, the village wouldn't be on board with still supporting the trail and doing something with it. It just means that we're reallocating that money that we have set aside in the past for it to do something
Temporarily,
else for the village. So
What's the worry? I guess I just don't understand this trail. There's train tracks, right?
Yes.
Just the path they took.
Yes.
I guess I don't. It's that big.
United
well,
with
so
community.
the thought process
27
originally
miles.
was it becomes the Rock Island Trail of this area, right?
Right. The fear right now would, who would buy it and what could somebody even do with it besides just make it a trail?
not much.
If they keep it rail banked, probably nobody's going to buy it. If they break it up into sections, I
The
can tell you-
homeowners could buy it?
Yeah, and there'll be several that want to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But you think it's,
It'd be me. I'd buy it.
You
Yeah.
can't.
right, which you would think they would
The
rather
rail
do
bank?
that.
You can't.
Say what?
Part of
I
the trail.
didn't know if we'd cause a bigger interruption by buying it and not letting The people who own the property right behind their house.
Well, no, only certain people because they said it's
There's two groups.
still their property.
Yeah.
When I bought my house, I was told the railroad owned it.
Right.
So it just is people that have been here longer than that.
Property when I was hiking.
Even if our community buys it up, I mean, nobody's saying we can't buy it off them in the future either. So I just didn't know if we were scared somebody was going to buy it and do something crazy with it.
No, I don't think so. Couldn't put anything on it.
Right,
I mean, it's
that's-
not wide enough, even with the easements for the railroad. It's not like they can put buildings down or anything.
It's something
Right.
that they worked on for over 20 years. And so everybody for 20 years has been
It's a
looking
20-year
forward to
project.
this.
Worked on.
Trying to buy that property.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this is a huge deal to a lot of people in the community.
Okay.
The closest we got to it was last year.
Okay.
And then what ended up happening is most of our partners ended up backing out. We were, standing
The
alone.
other towns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't want to do it. They wanted to help with the buy, but they didn't want to help with maintenance.
Or the
Because they wanted to sell the whole line. They don't want to break up their line.
No, they
No.
wouldn't. It would have been purchased all. It would have been all one piece.
Right.
And it would all been one thing, but
The rail company, I mean, they didn't want to sell it
individually,
into pieces.
at that time, they can't because it's rail land.
Gotcha.
Chose the law.
New term I
Sold
learned
it
today.
in one single piece.
Gotcha.
and they rail banked it for a year, and I think that year's up in April, somewhere around that time frame. And then the question, that's why I wanted to talk to Fred and see if he knew whether they were going to.
You never
Rail
thought
bank it
there was
again.
Well, Tri-County
so much involved in some
Planning
old
has been trying to get a group together.
Yeah.
We actually had people here.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And like,
I don't want to get blindsided at the hog trough one morning. Just train tracks.
no,
I want to show that I care.
yeah, I think there's a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into trying to make this thing happen, and I know there was a lot of disappointment when it didn't. But
The long run was not our fault, right?
no, I think at the
You
end of the
guys were
day,
following
There was
through.
disappointment, but understanding.
Right. We were trying to follow through. Hannah City was, but everybody else.
and I think if everybody else would have signed up and been right along with us, we probably would have gone ahead.
We had a
That's cool.
meeting where our attorney spoke and just gave an overview of the entire thing. And really by the end of that, even the people who were here fighting for it were like, yeah, I get it.
Okay.
And basically, Hannah City was going to be the regional developer for the whole
But the
thing.
For
problem is-
eternity.
The problem is that
Right.
the community wasn't here to hear that.
Right.
So the people that weren't here to hear that are going to be upset if we get rid of this money. So
Yeah.
Well, like Brian said, we could just
reshift things around.
reshift
I get
the
you.
capital savings if we want to get all back again.
Well, but it's still going into the community. It's
I
not
agree.
like we're doing something.
Oh, I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still
basically the
going
statement
into-
hasn't changed, which is we're interested. We're not against it. We're for it. It just has to make sense.
So, moving along, we'll go to buildings grounds, Mr. Weaver.
Nothing to report.
Streets and alleys.
Nothing to report.
Man, you're slacking. CEDC, Mr. Sidek.
All right. As always, our next meeting is April 11th. We're going to give the CEDC an update on the road signs. And we do have some new applications coming in. We have 4 residential applications so far, so we'll actually have something to do at the meeting. Nothing commercial yet.
Yeah, we did have 2 businesses ask for applications.
Oh, excellent.
So hopefully.
And then also, unfortunately, our at-large member, Mrs. Jen Reeder, has resigned her position just due to some life scheduling conflicts. So, if anybody knows anybody who's interested in becoming an at-large member,
And what are the requirements for that
I think you just have to live here.
in Hannah City?
Yes.
At large member is just a fancy term. They're just like a board member.
Well, we have
I don't know if they were in charge of something specific.
They're-
well, we have
representatives.
Yeah.
we have representatives from each of the taxing bodies,
Mhm.
and then we have just at-large, 2 at-large openings, and those are the ones that we're looking to fill. We'd love to have somebody who knew something about buildings so they can look at some of the costs and make sure that those are in line. We'd love to have a realtor who could look at projects and say that's going to do a lot for the home value or not a lot for the home value. If we had people like that, that would be great. And they're probably going to meet I don't know, even with the new projects, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, something like that.
It's not a lot.
Okay.
That is my report.
Oh, what time is your thing? April 11th.
It's usually 6.
In our commercial program, is there a specific date? Or do they have to list a specific date project starting, or do they just have to have a plan?
I think what they do is I think the application asks for a projected start date.
Right.
But, people can
It's
apply.
just projected.
Yeah, and people can apply all throughout the year. The key is to get the funding, the project has to be done by the end of the fiscal year next year.
Okay.
So by April of the end of next year.
Basically a year. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And I know there's some commercial interest out there. We just haven't gotten that form yet.
I think we're going to get a few.
Yeah, me and Jeff talked with one commercial today.
Good.
And I talked to another. I think we're going to get a couple. So
That's great.
Yeah. I think there's still a lack of understanding. They're confused. I think it looks so generous. They feel like something's hiding.
I think there's a catch.
Yeah.
We haven't really put out much information.
Yeah, but we said, please come to our meeting.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty.
Get your questions answered.
It's fairly clear. I mean, we're not asking them for money to do anything. So if they want to do a project, we're giving you money. So I don't know why they.
Yeah, I mean, I had somebody come in actually, ask me, kind of those same questions. Is this, and someone who I respect a great deal, and they were like, "Wow, that's great." So, but I think like anything, it's going to take time. We'll get some done and rolling, and people will find out what's available, and
cool.
Off we go.
Okay, under administration and our incident reports, February 12th through February 18th, we had 10 incidents. February 19th through February 25th, we had 3 incidents.
19th through what?
The 25th. The 26th of February through March 4th, we had 8 incidents. One of these addresses keeps popping up too. We'll talk about that offline. So everybody should have a copy of the Farmington Center Academic Foundation. Again, this is something that the village has participated in many, many years. This scholarships goes to seniors that are presented. It's not just everybody gets one. So it's Farmington Academic Foundation receives the money and then they disperse it. They've done 1,430 scholarships with a cumulative total of over $1.3 million since 1989. To help our youth start some of their funding for college, books, tech schools, things like that. So actually, I can't make a motion.
I make a motion that we donate $1,000 to the Farmington Central Academic Foundation.
I have a motion by Weaver.
Second.
Second by Pearson. Further discussion? Then normally at senior awards night, I will go up like I did last year, and then whoever the recipient is, I'll go up and they already have everything. Foundation, we write a check to the foundation. The foundation already has all the names of the list of the kids, so they already, have everything ready for them.
They have their own criteria and their own everything. And they get the kids. We don't have the standards.
Yeah, and the kids have to apply for it too. They don't just get them.
Sure.
And they don't get their money
Recommendation,
until
transcripts. I've done it a couple times.
How many times did you graduate?
They have a separate fund.
They have like a alumni scholarship.
Yeah. So,
Gave me $2,000 my senior year.
so we'll roll call that. Chair Raleigh,
Yes.
Sidak,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Cassandra, if I could have you give them a check.
Will do.
We got Brian and myself received a complaint letter from a resident over, well, first one was over some work on, I can't remember the name of the street over there. I'm blanking. Court, south of the tracks.
Oh, Robin Court.
Robin Court.
They worked on that today, by the way.
On some of the work, I got a hold of the homeowner and let him know that, you know, with the weather and everything, you know, we would have to get back out there. The ground was still soft from winter and everything, but I said, you know, I let him know that, you know, we're concerned. One of his concerns is, you know, we're on the south side of Hannah City, like the south side of Peoria. I said, but we don't consider that. I said, you're a resident just like anybody else. I said, if you have something, bring it to the board. You know, let the board know. I said, we're not going to go along with everything. You know, we can't appease everybody, but I said, if there's something that's, you know, in our right of way that we need to do or get taken care of, we're going to do that. He also did mention about the standing water they have going into that court. So I talked to Roger, Brian's talked to Roger on it both, and he's going to look at seeing what's going to need to be done and to maybe get that taken care of so they don't have standing water when they pull into that on the Robin Court there. So then we got another, not really complaint, just a
Unhappy citizen.
Unhappy citizen, thank you, about the water rate increase. Brian spoke with the gentleman, let him know that, you know, hey, that's beyond our control. You know, the village can't afford to take all that on. And, you know, if Ameren wasn't increasing their rates, then, you know, we wouldn't have to increase ours.
Illinois American.
What did I say?
Ameren.
Thank you.
I do it too.
I stand corrected.
Same thing.
American.
Goes both ways.
Yeah. The last thing I have is a letter from the Farmington Central High School. This is dated February 22nd, 2023. It's on the upcoming prom. On Saturday, May 6, 2023, Farmington Central High School will celebrate prom. Following the dance after prom event will be held at the school for all juniors, seniors, and their dates. The goal is to provide the children with a more enjoyable, safe place for prom night. It's been very successful for many years. We've given over 150 prizes away. Students arrive at school following prom and leave the school at 5 a.m. One, it's good to know where they're at. Activities will be provided. There will be plenty of food. Gifts will be wrapped off of the major door prizes. This letter is to request any sort of donation for your organization. We seek to support from parents, community members, and community businesses. Donations and events for the raffle, I'll go down these. What they're looking for is $15, $25 gift cards from Target or Walmart, 8 boxes of assorted candy bars, 4 mini fridges, 3 single-serve Keurigs, movies, 4 32-inch TVs, 15 restaurant gift cards, 3 wireless speakers, 15 $10 gift cards from Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, places like that. Maybe the coffee can, dorm room care packages, and gift baskets and gift cards. So if anybody has any idea or if they would like to support any of this, let us know and we can see about doing a donation to the prom. And we'd probably try to keep it under $500. Definitely.
Well, can you just send them the money and they'll take care of purchasing these things?
If you would like to contribute, you can drop off your donation at the high school.
Okay.
I can definitely attest to the success of After Prom. kept me and my friends out of trouble.
I know it kept me out of trouble every year, the 3 years that I went to prom when I was in high school. I grew up in Washington, so it was, you could go to the movies, you could go bowling, things like that. Once you're done with that, then one of the restaurants in town had at like 3 a.m. or 3:30 in the morning started breakfast, and that went till 5:30, and everything was included with your prom package, so you didn't have to pay for your breakfast or anything. Everybody got to sit around. It was,
I party, but
it was a party, but it was, nobody was getting in trouble.
Yeah, they stay in the gym.
Good wholesome fun.
Yes.
And movie theater, or, they had movies going. They had like bouncy houses. It was fun.
Bouncy houses?
They had bouncy houses at farmers.
I may have done that if that was offered.
Right.
When I was in Limestone, that was not a thing.
Yeah, we didn't have that.
We got to see the crash, the prom crash where they stage it, drunken accident, there's blood everywhere.
You get to see that before.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
I was.
Is the village going to make a donation or no?
I recommend we do.
I mean, if it's below 500, you can use your discretionary.
Yeah, we can use
Well, can we
discretionary.
just use a couple $100 and get them gift cards from places here in Hampton?
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
we can
saying.
do that.
Can't we just?
Huh?
I'm happy to go get gift cards whenever.
We get gift cards from all of our vendors here in Hampton.
Yeah.
And still keep it under 500 easy.
I'm happy to go do that anytime.
Okay.
They don't got to travel all that distance
No.
to Starbucks.
Okay, we'll do that.
Get a nice bubble tea from the coffee can.
Get some wings.
Someone brought up the homecoming crash. An event that happened when I was in 8th grade. That happened out on Route 24 coming from Peoria going to Washington. If anybody knows where the stoplight is, now if that stoplight will take you all the way into Sunnyland. But where that light is, there wasn't a light for many, many years. There were two couples in a car coming home from prom. They were juniors, 2 girls, 2 guys. They were hit by a drunk driver at that intersection. They were on 24. He didn't stop at the stop sign. And it was a fiery crash. All 4 of the kids perished. So having half-hour events like this, I don't know what they were doing. But if they had something like this back then, they could have already been at the school, been settled in,
Sure.
been safe. So, but does anybody have anything else to bring before the board?
The only thing I got was a couple people, I already mentioned it to Brian, we're talking about the siren in the water tower. I know you guys get tons of complaints about the siren.
Siren's not on the water tower.
Oh, it's not?
No, siren is on a separate post. Me and my daughter have this discussion all the time. We call it the wee woo and the wee woo stick. The pole is the stick, and then the wee woo's on top. So
Is it right next to it though?
it's
Yeah, you can see it.
yeah,
It's like right here.
yeah. You can't miss it.
I just, with the construction of a new water tower and stuff, I didn't know if all that was gonna have to be moved anyway. So there was questions about if we put a new water tower up, do we really have to have
The siren is not our property. It is Peoria County's property.
Correct, which I know there's sirens in every town when it comes to tornadoes and, the first Tuesday of every month, but not every time there's a fire call do they go off in all the other towns. So
I know Bartonville's do.
Well, if you have a volunteer fire department, if
Right.
you have, employees that say, I don't think they have a siren.
Every town has a volunteer fire department, and there's no siren.
that was just the question. If we could look into, do we really need it to go off for everything? They understand its purpose,
I do like it to go off everything.
but
That's just because you're nosy.
That's
I guess my question is, whose governance is it under? Is it Peoria County's? Or they do it on our behalf, or do we know?
I'm not sure on that.
Who sets it up?
Peoria Counties.
For our alarm?
It's
that would
not.
be the 911 dispatch, right?
Yeah. So
They have a guy that
So
just
our-
pulls the string.
Yeah,
So
somebody
all of our
falls,
fire
I mean,
dispatch,
everything.
all of our fire, all of our police is handled through Peoria County. So fire calls are handled through Peoria County Fire. Police or Peoria County has or Peoria County Sheriff's Department does, they don't do one for those, but through those. So it all goes through Peoria County 911 dispatch. So
Right, but the alarm is to alert the volunteers that they need to.
that's what the original
So the original
of it was for implementation.
People had cell phones.
Yeah, now they have different ways to be alerted. So I think that was their question. It's just, does it have to be for everything? I mean, if somebody falls in their home, so I don't know. And it's beginning to be the siren that cried wolf almost, because it's going off so much. When there really is something that we should be hearing the siren for, a reason to hear it. I mean, some people don't. I mean, I don't even hear it anymore. It's just a background noise.
Right.
I don't
And
react
I know
to it
it was
anymore.
kept for one time. It was also kept for some of the people that would pray for the people that they were being calls for. So that was also one of the reasons I know it was kept for a while. So
I guess that to me, my question still is, who's responsible? Do we even have authority to say, knock it off, don't do it anymore? Or
that may come to the Peoria County and Logan Trevoli Fire, because it's really symbolizes to them.
Let me do a little digging.
If they all need it, well, great. I just
It
wanted to
still
give these
goes
guys
off
an
in
answer
Farmington.
when they asked next.
Yeah, I know Farmington's goes off and then Limestone's goes off.
for me, it's like,
Peoria
it
Heights
does,
go off.
that does make a difference.
I don't think
One way or the other
Bartles
to me.
goes off for everything.
I can tell you though, when I go out, if
Most
I'm out
fires
somewhere
do.
and somebody introduced me as working for the village, that's the number one thing I get. How come we have to have that loud sound?
Well, I think that's a bigger problem, right? Is where it's at, centered in the middle of so many houses, and you'd still be able to hear it without it blowing out your eardrums for all these houses that live right, people.
And it's an older siren too, so I mean the newer ones are even louder.
Well, we can keep the old one and move it out in the middle of a cornfield or something.
So we can
We'll look into it.
I just want an answer for the people next time they ask.
I know it has to be line of sight of Peoria County.
I thought it was on the water tower. When you look up, it looks like there's a siren on there.
I always thought it was on the firehouse.
I'll dig.
Well, when you're standing out there and it starts to go off, it's not at the firehouse. It's right in front of you.
Yeah.
That sucker's
I mean, if
powerful.
we're on a conference call or in a meeting in here, we'd have to stop. It's that loud.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else to come before the board this evening? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Abby. Thank you, Ron. Thanks, Danny.